just what are your plans for the off season and possibly playing or just doing individual workouts?
Yeah, I mean, probably take a little bit of a break here, just for maybe a week. I don't really want to lose a ton of the stuff I've worked on, and just trying to get my body back to full health. There's some USA basketball.
Before we dive in, let's set the scene. Caitlin Clark, fresh off a breakout rookie season that redefined what attention and revenue look like in women's basketball, is taking a brief moment off. She's talking about resting her body, getting back to full health, and handling some commitments with USA basketball. On the surface, it sounds routine, measured, professional, but underneath that calm exterior sits one of the most explosive controversies in the history of women's sports. A story that didn't start with a press conference or a dramatic announcement. It started with a whisper, a leaked rumor so specific, so layered with calculated disrespect, that the entire sports world had no choice but to stop and pay attention. They thought they could erase her from the narrative. They believed that if they kept her name off the roster, if they simply excluded her from the stage, the story would fade. They underestimated the storm they were about to unleash. The decision to leave Caitlin Clark off the Team USA Olympic roster was already the most controversial roster move in the modern history of women's basketball. Critics were loud. Fans were furious. Sports economists and media analysts were shaking their heads, trying to understand how an institution built on representing the best of American talent could look at the sport's single biggest cultural force and say, "Not yet." But as the dust settled and the questions piled up, new information began to surface. Information that suggests the level of disrespect went far deeper than a simple roster omission. According to rumors leaking from inside the selection process, there was actually an offer on the table before the final door was slammed shut. And this is where the story takes a turn that almost defies belief, because this offer wasn't an honor. It wasn't a recognition of Clark's undeniable impact on the game. By all accounts, it was designed to be rejected. It was bait wrapped in an insult. The rumor circulating within basketball circles is this: league officials allegedly considered offering Clark a spot on the roster as a glorified alternate, not a starter, not a featured piece of the puzzle, an alternate, a backup plan, a name in small print at the bottom of the page. But even that isn't the most stunning part. Because allegedly attached to this offer was a condition that struck directly at the heart of who Caitlin Clark is, not just as a player, but as a brand and a cultural symbol. They planned, if these reports are accurate, to strip her of her iconic number 22 and hand her jersey number 12. Read that again, number 12. In the world of elite basketball, jersey numbers aren't simply digits stitched onto fabric. They are identity, they are legacy. They are a shorthand for everything a player has built. Michael Jordan is 23. LeBron James is 23 and 6. Kobe Bryant is 8 and 24. Wayne Gretzky is 99. These numbers don't just represent athletes. They represent eras, movements, and moments that transcend the sport itself. And Caitlin Clark is number 22. It's on the backs of tens of thousands of fans in arenas across the country. It's in the record books. It's become inseparable from her name. Now here's the cultural weight behind number 12 in basketball locker room language. In the unwritten code of team sports, number 12 carries a very specific reputation. It's widely recognized as the number assigned to the last player on the roster. The bench warmer special. The jersey you hand to the guy, or in this case, the woman, who is technically on the team but never expected to actually matter. Giving Caitlin Clark number 12 wasn't just logistical. If the rumor is true, it was a message. It was a way of saying, loud and clear without ever raising a voice, "You are not the star here. You are lucky to even be in the room." This is what makes the alleged offer so explosive. It wasn't a rejection. It was something almost worse. It was a conditional acceptance laced with humiliation. A velvet rope lowered only if she agreed to walk through it on her knees. And when you understand the calculated nature of that symbolism, every other piece of the puzzle clicks into place. To fully understand the magnitude of this insult, you have to understand what Caitlin Clark represents beyond basketball. She isn't just a player. She is an economy. She is a movement. She is arguably the single most important thing to happen to women's professional basketball in the sport's entire history. The merchandise she sells, the tickets she fills, the television ratings she drives, these aren't just impressive for women's sports. They are impressive, full stop. No qualifiers needed. Her number 22 is a brand, a logo, a symbol that sponsors attach themselves to and broadcasters build programming around. To offer her a number associated with irrelevance was, functionally, a demand that she erase her own identity and submit to a hierarchy that the new generation of fans, the very fans keeping the league financially alive, have no interest in respecting. It was a way of telling the world's most visible basketball player that she was second in line, and the line was long. This aligns almost perfectly with the gatekeeping narrative that has followed Clark since her very first professional game. The established veterans, the old guard who built the WNBA through years of sacrifice and relative obscurity, have been resistant, fiercely resistant, to surrendering the cultural spotlight. When Diana Taurasi, a genuine legend of the game, told Clark before the season started that reality is coming, the sports world interpreted it as a warning. A declaration that the veterans weren't going to make space easily. And they haven't. From aggressive on-court physicality to pointed media commentary, the welcome wagon has been conspicuously absent. The Olympic roster was supposed to be above all that. It was supposed to be a meritocracy. The best of the best, assembled to represent an entire nation on the world's largest stage. Instead, if the jersey number story is even partially accurate, it became something else entirely. It became a country club with a velvet rope and a bouncer who checks your seniority first and your talent second. But here is where the narrative shifts in a way nobody expected. Because into this story walks Sophie Cunningham, and her presence changes everything. Cunningham is a Phoenix Mercury standout. She is not a media darling. She doesn't make highlight reels for her elegance or her marketing appeal. She makes them for her toughness, her tenacity, and her refusal to back down from anyone or anything. Opposing fans have labeled her a villain. Rivals respect her. Teammates trust her. She is, in the truest sense, a grinder, someone who has fought for every inch of respect she's ever received from this league. Reports suggest that Cunningham was not pleased with how Clark was handled. That she pushed back against the politics, that she refused to silently endorse a culture of hazing dressed up as protocol. And if that's true, it sends a seismic signal. Because Cunningham isn't a member of the Caitlin Clark fan club. She isn't a rookie trying to make friends. She's a veteran player with credibility in the locker room, and if she's disgusted by what happened, it validates something important. It proves that the conflict isn't simply crazy fan theories online. It proves that inside the league itself, among players who live and breathe this game every single day, there is a recognition that the treatment of Clark has gone too far. The media wants to frame this as Clark versus the WNBA, as fans versus players, as the new world versus the old world, but Cunningham's reported defiance blows that framing apart. This is more complicated and more honest than a simple generational war. There are veterans who can see the writing on the wall. They understand that Caitlin Clark is the tide that lifts all boats, and that every petty act against her is a hole in the hull of the ship they're all standing on. Let's step back and look at the financial and strategic absurdity of this entire situation, because it is genuinely staggering. The WNBA spent decades begging for attention, begging for television contracts, begging for chartered flights, for decent salaries, for media coverage that went beyond a 30-second mention at the end of a SportsCenter broadcast. Players like Taurasi, Stewart, and Sue Bird spent the primes of their careers overseas during the off-season because the WNBA's pay structure couldn't sustain them alone. They fought and sacrificed, and suffered for the opportunity to one day see this league thrive. And then Caitlin Clark arrived, and the league thrived, almost overnight. Arena sellouts, skyrocketing TV ratings, merchandise selling out nationwide, corporate sponsors flooding in, a generation of young fans, many watching professional women's basketball for the very first time, suddenly glued to their screens. The numbers are not debatable. The impact is not a matter of opinion. Caitlin Clark delivered to the WNBA the kind of mainstream cultural moment that the league had spent 30 years trying to manufacture. And the response from the establishment was to offer her jersey number 12 and a seat at the end of the bench. Sports marketing experts have estimated that Clark's exclusion from the Olympic Games cost the league and broadcasting partners millions of dollars in potential revenue. Millions of casual viewers who would have tuned in specifically to watch her. Millions of social media impressions that went elsewhere. Millions of potential new fans who sampled women's basketball because of Caitlin Clark and then didn't see her on the Olympic stage. The financial self-harm here is almost incomprehensible. It is the equivalent of a restaurant achieving viral fame for one specific dish, and then taking that dish off the menu because the head chef is offended that customers keep asking for it. Now consider the effect on the players who did make the team. These are exceptional athletes, champions, veterans who have represented their country with honor and distinction. They deserved their moments. They earned their spotlight. But by excluding Clark the way they did, the committee guaranteed that the spotlight would never fully land on them. Every press conference became about the player who wasn't there. Every time Team USA looked slow or struggled to score, social media lit up with the same chorus. Clark would have made that pass. Clark would have hit that shot. Clark would have changed this game. They wanted to avoid the distraction of having Clark on the roster. They succeeded in creating a distraction 10 times larger by leaving her off of it. They wanted the focus to be on the team. Instead, the team became a backdrop for a conversation about the one person who wasn't there. It is perhaps the most stunning strategic miscalculation in the history of USA basketball. And through all of it, through the controversy, the leaks, the jersey number rumors, the public fury, Caitlin Clark said almost nothing. She has not complained. She has not gone on social media to air grievances or play the victim. She has not demanded apologies or used her platform to attack the people who orchestrated her exclusion. She went back to work. She kept putting up numbers. She kept making plays that have no business being made by someone in her first professional season. She kept being undeniably, infuriatingly excellent. This silence is a weapon, and she wields it with precision. Her critics want her to crack. They want her to say something entitled, something emotional, something they can use to justify the way she's been treated. If she had complained publicly about being offered number 12, they would have called her a diva who puts personal branding above team unity. By saying nothing and letting her performance speak instead, she has held up a mirror to everyone who has worked against her. She has shown the world the difference between a basketball decision and an ego decision without ever uttering a word. That kind of composure in the middle of that kind of storm is not an accident. It is calculated, it is mature, and it is, for her critics, absolutely maddening. Now let's talk about what happens next, because this story is far from over. The tension between the old guard and the new era is going to define the next several seasons of this league. Every time Clark faces Taurasi or Stewart, this snub will be the subtext. Every time Sophie Cunningham takes the floor, there will be fans who remember her as the one who stood up when it mattered. Every time Team USA assembles, the question of who gets invited and who doesn't will carry a weight it never carried before. The WNBA is at a crossroads. The gatekeepers are holding on with white knuckles, but the force pushing against the gate is historic and unstoppable. The fan base that Caitlin Clark has brought to this sport is not passive. They are not casual. They are fiercely loyal, deeply engaged, and paying very close attention to how the institution treats the player they came to see. You don't insult the reason people showed up and expect to keep their goodwill. For the next generation of talent watching all of this unfold, young players deciding where to take their professional careers, deciding which leagues and which institutions deserve their loyalty, This is a lesson. The WNBA had a golden opportunity to prove it, was an organization that rewards excellence, embraces its biggest stars, and prioritizes the growth of the sport above internal politics. Whether or not that opportunity was missed will depend heavily on what the league does next. But here's the thing about Caitlin Clark that no jersey number, no roster decision, and no old guard politics can change. She is getting better. Every single game, every single season, she is expanding her game, refining her reads, and tightening every aspect of her craft. The player they snubbed for the Olympics is not the ceiling. She is the floor. The best is still coming. And when the time comes, and it will come for her to stand on that Olympic stage, don't be surprised if the terms are entirely different. Don't be surprised if she walks in not as an alternate in someone else's jersey, but as the face of the program, the first name on the roster, the reason people tune in from every corner of the world. The committee tried to offer her a scrub number and a seat at the back of the bus, but you cannot keep generational talent in the cheap seats forever. They created a monster. They gave her all the motivation she will ever need. And if the jersey number 12 rumor is true, then somewhere in Caitlin Clark's mind, there is a number she will never forget. Not because it diminished her, but because it proved beyond any doubt exactly who she is and exactly who they were afraid of. The WNBA has a choice, adapt or fade, because Caitlin Clark is coming, whether they like it or not. That's the story. Drop your thoughts below. Do you think the jersey number leak was real? And is Sophie Cunningham the most underrated figure in this entire saga? Let us know. Subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you in the next one.